Everyone, patching into today's video, we're going to have a look at everything that's going to be going into the winter 2014-2015 forecast today. So it's all beginning to happen at GazWebBiz.com. The actual updates will start next week, but this week I'm going to show you the methodology, basically, all the things that I'm going to be looking at through the autumn, through the updates, until we get to the end of November, when I'll bring together everything that we've been looking at through the autumn and create a winter forecast for the winter of 2014-2015. Now, I'm not exactly sure when the exact day will be when I'm going to do the final and official forecast from GazWebBiz.com. It may be November the 30th, certainly November 30th. It could be Monday, December the 1st. It'll either be one of those 2 days. Just become just a little bit funny this year. I certainly don't want to wait until we get through to the next Sunday in December, which will be, I think it'll be the 7th, certainly the 7th of December. I don't want to wait that long. Be a little bit too early to do it before that as well. So I think we'll be looking around November the 30th, December the 1st, something like that, but I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out. I will keep you informed, of course, as we go through the autumn when I get that final date penned in. But through the next few weeks and a couple of months, we're going to be looking at all of the developments, really, as we move through the autumn, see how things are stacking up, so that eventually, as we get through to the end of November, we can produce that final winter forecast for winter of 2014-2015. As a caveat, as I've also been in a few forecasts we saw of the United States. If you know anybody in the States that's interested in what weather may be doing for them, do tell me about GazWebBiz.com, because I'll be starting that through September as well. But getting back to today's video, anyway, I'm going to show you the methodology that I'm going to be using through the autumn to come to this winter forecast at the end of November. So you see everything that's going to be going into the forecast in a moment. Before I get on with that, though, just to say about the ads, there's video ads on my pages at GazWebBiz.com. If you want to hit play on video ad, you'll be able to support GazWebBiz.com. Thanks so much for doing that. I know you do play the ad, by the way. I see the data that I get from this, so I know that you've been doing it. Excuse me, thanks so much for supporting GazWebBiz.com. It's very kind of you. I couldn't have the website really without the video ad, so it pays me to sit and talk to you via the website. Thanks so much for getting involved, and keep playing those video ads, see what they're about, and you're able to support GazWebBiz. Thanks so much for doing that. And also just say that everything that you see in this video, the charts you see in this video, you can find the links to most of the pages on my links page, and just really enjoy the video. I hope you find it interesting to see how the things are going to be stacking up over the next few weeks and months as those winter forecasts begin, winter updates begin through the autumn. So let's start off with, but where we're already at, really. We've already done the North Atlantic Oscillation forecast, the NAO forecast, did it back in the end of May, the start of June. NAO forecast is based on Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies through the North Atlantic, of course, in the month of May. And the actual forecast, if you want to see the forecast, you can find it on the seasonal page. How you get to that is you just go to the top, the menu bar on the top of this page, select long range, and then a drop down menu will drop out. Go to seasonal, click that, take you through the seasonal page, and from there you can get through to the North Atlantic Oscillation forecast from the seasonal page. And by the way, all of the updates this year are going to be put on the seasonal page as well. The links to all of the updates are going to be going onto the seasonal page. Normally I just do the seasonal model updates and keep them around the website, but this year I'm going to keep all of the updates. It's going to be about 7 or 8 of them through the autumn, and you'll be able to go back and see how the storyline unfolded through the course of the autumn. Every update we do is going to have its own individual page at GazWebBiz.com. As I say, you'll be able to get to all of those updates from the seasonal page. So going back to the North Atlantic Oscillation forecast, we've already got this in the can, so to speak. The forecast was for a positive North Atlantic Oscillation through the winter, because we didn't have a tripod. A tripod is a band of warm, cold and warm that you want to see. If you want a negative North Atlantic oscillation, a tripod, that's what you want to see. And of course a negative North Atlantic oscillation extrapolates, or can extrapolate, not always, but can extrapolate to a colder than average winter, or a greater chance of a colder than average winter if it occurs in winter. Now, we didn't have the tripole in May. What we had was if anything, was a cold, warm, cold band, actually, the opposite of a tripole. So, if anything, that sort of points to a very positive North Atlantic oscillation as you go through, or if it was to go through into the winter. Now, there have been some developments from that in recent times, but that was the starting point anyway. Back at the start of June, the starting point for this coming winter was that the Atlantic setup through May was pointing towards a positive North Atlantic oscillation. Now, this is the very latest sea surface temperature anomaly chart for the globe from NOAA, N-O-A-A. We'll be looking at these charts throughout the autumn. It's going to be very important to see how things develop. What we're going to be looking at specifically is the Atlantic and the Pacific. So, first of all, dealing with the Atlantic, we're looking for the warm, cold, warm band, the tripole, to emerge through the autumn and into winter, pointing towards negative NAO. We've got a very warm anomaly to the south of Greenland, so that's nicely in place. But elsewhere through the Atlantic, we're still not really setting it up for a tripole. If anything, well, we've got very warm anomalies through the mid-Atlantic, not as warm as to the south of Greenland, but still pretty warm there. I mean, down in the tropics, it's still a little bit cooler than average. That's quite an unusual setup for the North Atlantic oscillation, but it isn't a tripole. But there's nothing to say that a tripole couldn't emerge through the course of this autumn, particularly with this very warm sort of anomaly to the south of Greenland. That is quite interesting how we've got that just there. Now, what we're also going to be looking at, of course, is the ENSO region. I've been doing the El Nino updates through this year, particularly through the summer. It's this region just here, going out from Peru through to Indonesia. Peru over here in South America, of course, Indonesia over here. We're going to be looking to see whether the El Nino emerges through the course of this autumn. It's been a nightmare, this El Nino. The models have been really going for an El Nino, or the idea that there's going to be an El Nino, but the actual atmosphere and the oceans haven't been really reflecting what the models have been showing, so it still sort of fits and starts even now. I can tell you that from this, there's still no real sign there of an El Nino, although on the very last update, I'm sure you saw it, I did say that this cold water just here is weakening, and that could be the start of allowing really an El Nino to begin to get going. But we are not in El Nino conditions yet. We're going to have to wait to see whether the El Nino emerges through the autumn. I'll talk about it much more in the coming videos, but we're looking at a centrally based El Nino for a cold winter, really, or the chance of a cold winter of Madoki El Nino with the warm water just there and cooler around here. You'll see much more about this probably next week's first update. Actually, I've got some very interesting charts to show you from Assad, who a few months ago sent me some charts about what a Madoki El Nino can mean in some circumstances for us in the winter months. I'll be showing you those in the very first update next week. Also going to be looking at the PDO region, which is this region just here. See what PDO is doing. We're in a warm PDO at the moment, although long term we're in a cold phase of the PDO, so we're deviating a bit from the actual PDO term. Of course, that does happen in any cycle. You get deviations from the mean. So despite that, we're in a warm PDO right now. A long-term setup is for a cold PDO. And interestingly, we begin to get a little bit of cool water. I'll clear that away and just show you this just here. We beginning to get a little bit of cool water setting up around there. That could just be the very start of the PDO beginning to trend back towards cold. Also quite interesting is this area up here around the northwestern coast of the United States and Canada. That was very warm last winter, and it's a big deviation. What you normally get up there is very cold water, so it's still there. We've still got very warm waters up here around the northwestern coast of United States, Canada and Alaska. It's a deviation from what you'd normally expect, probably tied in with the warm PDO, if anything. Now, last winter, I think this probably played quite a big part in the pattern that set up last winter, because this warm water sort of extrapolated to quite a big area of high pressure just here. That forced the jet stream. I can't show you because the United States on this map is kind of black, so I can't highlight it. But the high pressure up there, where that warm water is, forced the jet stream northwest to southeast through the United States produced a severely cold winter for much of the north and east of the states, and that cold then spilled out over the Atlantic Ocean, hit the warm waters around here, and caused explosive sort of cyclogenesis, and that created big areas of low pressure that swept across the Atlantic and gave us our very stormy, wet and mild wind. Now there's more to it than that, but I think this did play a part, this warm water up here, in what happened last winter. It's still there, it looks like it's still going to be there for this winter as well. Now whether it has quite the same effect, it's all going to depend whether we can set up blocking around Greenland. We didn't have any blocking last winter, so the low pressures just blasted through the Atlantic and into British Isles and Europe. Whether that's going to be the pattern we have this year, of course, we can't say. But they're the things we're going to be looking at in terms of the oceans anyway over the next few weeks and a couple of months. We're also going to be looking at solar activity, of course. This is the latest image of the solar disk on our side of the disk today. .net. We are officially when I'm doing this video on Friday evening. What's the date today? It's the 29th of August, so Friday evening on the 29th of August I'm doing the video. Solar activity is officially very low. We have hardly got any sunspots here showing up to speak of. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with solar activity through the course of this winter. What happened last winter is that we had a very big ramp up in solar activity. We got the second peak of the solar maximum solar cycle 24. Much weaker cycle. I've explained this in other solar updates, but much weaker cycle than the last solar maximum, solar cycle 23. Much weaker maximum than that. Nevertheless, we did get a ramp up through last winter. We reached our peak around January and February of 2014, right in the heart of winter. And it was a bigger peak than the first peak that occurred in the latter part of 2011. Since that peak, we've dropped down, have gone downwards, back towards the long-term trend really for this solar maximum, which is this sort of area just here. And I don't think when August figures are added to this graph, I don't think we're going to be shooting back up. We'll probably be sticking around where we was in July. It's going to be very interesting what occurs through the autumn into the winter. My suspicion is that we passed solar maximum and we'll very gradually see a drop down in solar activity over the next 2 or 3 years, but that doesn't preclude the chance of sudden spikes upwards. Well, we probably won't get back to this second peak, probably won't even get back to the first peak. We could get a spike upwards through the course of the autumn and into winter. It'd be interesting if we do, because that increased solar activity, you know, the connection with increased areas of low pressure in the atmosphere. Conversely, when you get less activity, when there's fewer sunspots, it does appear to extrapolate to northern blocking. So if we are going to drop down to solar minimum, well, we are going to drop down to solar minimum over the next few years, but it's how it happens. That's what's going to be the key to whether we can generate some cold winters in the next 2 or 3. Once we get through to solar minimum at the end of this decade, in the start of 2020s, it won't be a problem because we'll be firmly in solar minimum then, so we won't really have to worry about solar activity. Also going to have a look at the QBO, see how that's going. We're going to easterly for the QBO in this winter. We was westerly through last winter, and westerly phases of the QBO on this graph are indicated by these dark grey colours just here. We was westerly for the QBO last winter. A westerly QBO basically means that we're enhancing the zonal westerlies through the northern hemisphere. So when you add everything together, the warm water around the northwest coast of the states, the increasing solar activity, the spike up in solar activity, the westerly phase of the QBO, it's probably not that surprising we had a mild winter. What is surprising is just how phenomenally wet it was and stormy. But in terms of having a mild winter, probably wasn't all that surprising. And my forecast for last winter wasn't for a great winter. To be honest, I thought it would be generally quite mild and dry, or near normal temperatures and quite dry. But once you put all this together, probably not that surprising what happened. As I say, we're going into the easterly phase of the QBO for this winter, which is going to be sort of white areas just here. This will all look white as we get through into the winter in this part of the graph. An easterly phase of the QBO means that you reverse the zonal westerlies, you weaken them off, and that in turn extrapolates, or should in theory extrapolate, to an increased risk of northern blocking. Now, it's not quite that simple. I won't go into this now, but we'll be looking at it in more in-depth in other video updates, winter updates. But it's not as simple as that, because there are many phases of easterly QBOs. You can see them indicated by all these white areas on the map. Many phases of the easterly QBO that did not coincide with colder than average winters. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. It should increase our chance a little bit of the colder winter. By no means the be-all and end-all. I'll be telling you more about that over the next few weeks and the next couple of months. Also going to have a look, very importantly, at snow cover extent and sea ice extent, see how much ice is melting in the Arctic, but crucially also to see how quickly the Siberian plain fills up with snow. I think this was very important to what happened last winter in terms of the United States and Canada having a very cold winter. Now, we've already got quite a bit of snow cover here. It doesn't look like much, but this just here is quite significant here in central northern Siberia. That is more than you would expect at the end of August to be seeing in the Siberian plain at this time of year. You wouldn't really be expecting anything yet on the Siberian plain. It could well be that this melts, but we have been seeing snow beginning to appear, snow cover begin to appear on and off through this period. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how quickly this builds up. Now, there's not much else to see other than that area of snow cover there, but eventually, by the time you get through to November, this whole area, thousands and thousands of miles of area of Siberian wilderness, really, until you get towards western Russia, are going to become covered by snow. It's how quickly that happens, and also importantly where that happens. What happened last winter is that this area just here became very quickly snow covered. You may remember it through last part of September into early October, but it did not progress out in towards western Russia. It did not progress that way at all quickly last year. So building up the snow cover quickly here, I think it very much increased the risk of the Siberian high, increased the strength of the Siberian high, and favoured it going that way over the pole and down into Canada. Of course, we have got that warm. We've still got that warm anomaly just there off the northwestern coast of Canada and the United States as well. Put it all together. I said it at the time last winter, it was a very good signal for a really cold winter for the United States. That's exactly what happened. And of course that does play in to what happened for us as well in terms of that very stormy winter. So we've got some interesting snow cover there already. It's going to be very interesting to see how quickly that spreads and marches across the Siberian plain and gets towards western Russia. Particularly October is going to be the focus for that into the very start of November. Also, it will be interesting, of course, to see whether Scandinavia gets covered in snow very quickly. It didn't last year, but in some of the colder years where we have colder winters, Scandinavia does get covered in snow quite quickly. 2009 was an example of that, Scandinavia getting covered quickly in snow. 2012 was an example of the Siberian plain getting covered very rapidly across virtually the whole of the plain through October, and that played its part, I think, in the winter of 2012-2013. We're also going to have a look at the Arctic sea ice extent. We'll be concentrating on that really in the next couple of weeks, because once we get through to mid-September, it'll be on its way up. This is how much ice has melted so far. The yellow area here is where we've still got Arctic sea ice. The blue area is where we've had melting going on. We've lost a lot of ice and snow from Greenland as well, but more significantly is the North Pole. This really, the idea behind this is that if you lose a lot of ice over the North Pole, it can extrapolate towards an increased risk of northern blocking, but it's very controversial. There's not a lot of evidence for it, but that's how much ice we've lost so far. How that compares with recent years, we can see here on this chart. This is the total sea ice loss so far. The black line just here is 2014. We're virtually in the middle of the pack of the last few years. We are down on the last really good year that was really good for retaining the ice, which was 2006, just there, the blue line. We are below that, so we're not as good as 2006 for how much ice we've lost. this year. But we are not down in the depths of 2012, which was a terrible year. This one just here. That was an awful year for how much ice we lost over the Arctic. It could have helped the cold winter that we eventually got 2012, 2013, but in terms of sea ice, if you worry about how much ice is going from the North Pole, well, that was a terrible year, 2012. Also, some other years that we're above right now, 2007, of course, 2011 as well, which is just there. We're generally on a par with where we was this time last year, actually. This red line here is 2013. We're pretty much on a par with it, to be honest, right in the middle of the pack. So we're not as good as 2006. We're not as bad as those years where we had like death spiral in terms of Arctic sea ice loss. We're somewhere in the middle. It'll be very interesting to see how much ice we lose over the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to have a look at the autumn weather patterns, see how they stack up through the autumn. Got a lot of controversy about this sort of pattern matching, and I've been in trouble with this over the years on many of the forums because some of the ideas are very controversial, but I'll quickly go through them and tell you what the ideas are. There is a theory that an unsettled and cool September like this, with low pressure over country on the 8th of September 1995, can sometimes extrapolate to an increased chance of a cold and average winter, whereas a very warm September and dry September can extrapolate to the chance of a warmer than average winter. It's different for October. It's the reverse for October. A warm, dry October can extrapolate to a cold winter, whereas a very wet and cool October can extrapolate to a mild winter. So September and October reverse really with the patterns you're looking for if you want a cold winter. It's a cool, wet September and a warm, dry October. And then going through to November, this is perhaps a little bit less controversial. There is an idea, and I know the late great Paul Bartlett sort of believed in this idea, that if you get a wet November, doesn't really matter about temperature, but if you get a very wet November, it can increase the risk of a cold winter. Paul Bartlett was a forecaster with UK Met Office. He was based in Rutland. Sadly, he passed away last year, but this was one of his big theories, that a wet November, temperature not important, does increase your chance of a colder than average winter. So we'll be looking at the autumn weather patterns, see how they are stacking up through the course of the autumn as well. And then, of course, no autumn forecast is complete, or no winter forecast is complete without the seasonal model. So I'll just show you a few charts from the South Korean model for today. It's not actually as simple as being a South Korean model, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent. This is the APEC Climate Center. It's based in South Korea, but the model is actually, what you're looking at here, is actually a collaboration between several World Met organisations. So it's not quite simple as saying this is a South Korean model, although the APEC is a South Korean Met agency. Anyway, with those caveats aside, this is the 500 millibar height anomaly chart for December. This was just generated a few days ago in August. It is seeing, for the long-range model for December, is seeing that we get a trough of low pressure to the east. We've got a ridge out in the Atlantic. That's quite an unsettled looking chart, and we're probably bringing a jet stream through, something like that. So it's not particularly cold. It could be a bit chilly, particularly in the north and the east at times, but generally it's quite a unsettled and fairly mild or near normal sort of temperature for December. Now, as we go through to January, things more interesting. We get a trough of low pressure over the country, a trough of below average heights at 500 millibars over the country through January, and we are increasing risk of blocking as well in the northern latitudes. Look at all this red that's setting up over Greenland. On the face of it, that's a cold trough of low pressure sitting underneath a block of high pressure. Notice also for the United States, we've got below average heights there for the south and the east of states, indicating again the chance of a cold wind. So on the face of it, that is a cold looking scenario as we get through to January. And then on into February. This is perhaps the best one for a cold winter. Again, we've got lots of northern blocking over Greenland and over northern latitudes. And the trough of low pressure is digging further south and east as well, the trough of below average height. The jet stream with this is definitely to the south of the country, going something like that. So on the cold side of the jet by February, and we're under a fair amount of northern blocking. The overall temperature forecast is coming out actually very much near normal. There's the scale just there. We see that overall we're coming out for the British Isles around average for the whole of the winter, but I think that's probably a warmish start or a mildish start for December, being offset by a colder finish. Certainly by the time we get through to February, that 500 millibar chart was very indicative of what you'd be looking for a cold winter. We'll be having a look at many more long-range seasonal models just like that through the autumn. We'll have one update a month through September, October and November of all the seasonal models, get them together, have a look at them, and then in the end all of those seasonal models will also join everything else we've looked at, or we're going to look at, and we'll come up with the forecast. As I say, the forecast, the final forecast, will be released on November 30th or December the 1st. So that's it. It's all going to be kicking off from next Sunday. We'll do the first winter update of this season next Sunday at GavsWeatherVince.com. So do come back. That will be very interesting to see how all of this is developing. Hope you found the video interesting to see what the methodology is going to be and the things that I believe are important for forecasting the winter in the United Kingdom. That's it for now. Hope you found the video interesting. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.